Parashat Terumah, the Tabernacle. In the following article, we will reveal the original model of the sanctuary, the one of which the tabernacle built by Moses was only the shadow, the symbolic representation. Besides the fact that this heavenly sanctuary is none other than the body of the Messiah, the body of the Levites, that is to say all those who have been born again in Christ and who serve in His temple, are also individually the temples of the Holy Spirit. As we can read it in 1 Corinthians 3:16 and 6:19, don't you know that yourselves are Elohim's temple and that Elohim's Spirit dwells in your midst? This means that the original heavenly sanctuary, the body of Yeshua HaMashiach, in which Yeshua himself serves as high priest, we, his servants or assistants, the Levites, are also smaller projections of the same original heavenly sanctuary, and therefore we are its representatives here on earth. The pattern that Moses was given to see, on the basis of which the tabernacle was to be built, was nothing more than the body of the Messiah. All the symbols of the tabernacle refer to the Messiah, his person, his characteristics, his ministry, his splendor, and his glory. I will meet you from between the two cherubim, say Yahuwah. Yahuwah said to Moses that henceforth he will speak to him and reveal his commandments from between the cherubims. The Ark of the Covenant was covered by the wings of two archangels. Two archangels protecting the commandments, two pillars on the foundation of which Yahuwah speaks. Exodus 25:22. The temple of Yahuwah rests on the two pillars or foundation of the apostles and prophets, Yeshua HaMashiach himself being the cornerstone. As we read in Ephesians 2, consequently, you are no longer foreigners and strangers, but fellow citizens with Elohim's people and also members of his household, built on the foundation of the apostles and prophets, with the Messiah, Yeshua himself, as the chief cornerstone. In him, the whole building is joined together and rises to become a holy temple in Yahuwah. And in him, you too are being built together to become a dwelling in which Elohim lives by his Spirit. When Yeshua was transfigured and Moses appeared as the law, the essence of apostolic ministry, and on the other side Eliyahu appeared as the ultimate representative of the prophetic mission, we witness the reunification of an angelic trinity that was shattered by the fall of Lucifer, the luminous, who becomes Satan, the enemy, the accuser, as we can see in Matthew 17, Mark 9, and Luke 9. Yahuwah himself, as the Messiah, Christ, in his role of the Son, comes to take the empty place left by the fallen archangel and speaks, which means that he spreads the gleam of his glory by his own word, relying on the law and the prophets. He takes on this role because the one whose task this would have originally been has abandoned his place. Although Moses at the time as a human being was only an external witness to the building of the tabernacle, the Cherubim, which means the cherubs, are none other than the representations of the archangels Michael and Gabriel, who adorn the Ark of the Covenant. There, as on the Mount of Olives during the transfiguration, he appears between and only in the presence of the two cherubs. It is by the complementary ministry of those cherubs, apostolic and prophetic, that Yahuwah speaks. There, his voice rises to tell the word that became flesh in Yahushua, the one who is the anointed, the Messiah. This marks the restoration of the perfect ministry of the heavenly temple. And the anointed Messiah is not a distinct person, none one of the three supposed entities of a triple deity, but one of the principal manifestations of the one Elohim, who has always been included in Yahuwah and cannot be separated from him. This fusional union is similar to the initial Adamic state when the first man, Adam, included in himself the woman, the one who will later be withdrawn and separated from him to receive the name of Eve, because the situation wanted her to come out of itself, so that the feminine attribute of the human being serves as a companion and helper to its masculine side. The concept of the Holy Trinity, which attempts to multiply the one Elohim by three, in order to create three gods who would be one, is truly an at least 2 millennia old heresy. However, let anyone refrain from switching to the other extreme of this false teaching and falling into a kind of Unitarism, a doctrine even more heretical than the first, because it degrades Yahushua, the Messiah, to a simple creature or an archangel, thus depriving Yahuwah of his attributes as Redeemer and Comforter, being also Ruach HaKodesh. Already at the time when Hillel, the fallen archangel, since renamed Satan, was still in his place and fulfilled his role indicated by his name, which means reflection of the brightness of Elohim, the bearer of the light of Elohim, the reflection of his brilliance, in other words, the power to restore or repair a possible fault of failure in his celestial kingdom, which was then still perfect, already resided in Yahuwah. The possibility that he saves, that Yahuwah saves, which in Hebrew is called Yahushua, has always been intrinsically incorporated in him. The first world created, his kingdom, was not supposed to have any failure, but if it did, the power of Elohim is naturally capable of repairing everything. Yahuwah, as the Savior, the role of Yahushua, the Son, did not have to be activated until all created beings, that means the angel and the archangels, occupied their places and all fulfilled their respective functions. The place of the fallen archangel left vacant following the latter's fall was taken by Yahuwah himself, by Elohim in his quality and role as the Son, the Savior, Yahuwah who saves, Yahushua in a word. He is not a separate creature, but a special ability of Yahuwah, one of the main forms of manifestation of his immeasurable diversity. Yahushua is the Redeemer, the Restorer, the Healer, and the Creator attribute of the one Elohim. I challenge anyone to show me a passage of scriptures when any man or prophet would have seen in a vision 3 beings, or 2 overflown by a dove, who would have shared the same and one supreme throne. In each vision, each time, only one Elohim appeared, which included in him the Father, the Son, as well as Ruach HaKodesh. See more about this topic in my article and video called Holy Trinity or Triple Holiness. Restoration of the Sanctuary. I read in Matthew 17, verse 1 to 9. After 6 days, Yeshua took with him Peter, which is Kephash in Hebrew, James, which is Yaakov, and John, which is Yohanan, the brother of James, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. There he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light. Just then, there appeared before them Moses and Elijah, talking with Yeshua. Peter said to Yeshua, "Lord, It is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, Moshe, and one for Elijah, Eliyahu. While he was still speaking, a bright cloud covered them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my son whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell face down to the ground, terrified. But Yeshua came and touched them. "Get up," he said. "Don't be afraid." When they looked up, they saw no one except Yeshua. As they were coming down the mountain, Yeshua instructed them, "Don't tell anyone what you have seen until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead." This event is the moment when the Redeemer gave us a glimpse of the restored state of perfection of the heavenly temple as it was before the rebellion of the fallen angels. Kephash, Peter, Yaakov, James, and Yohanan, John, gained a glimpse of a part of the celestial sanctuary, the Holy of Holies. Here is the very word of Yahuwah, the Son, who stands above the Ark of the Covenant and speaks to us from between the 2 cherubs. In us also, being ourselves the earthly shadows representing this sanctuary, the temples of the Holy Spirit, the law engraved in our hearts by the fire of Ruach HaKodesh, speaks to us in order to guide us from within. Eliyahu is back. As we can read in the following passage that we just read in Matthew 17, from verse 10 to 13, the disciples ask him, "Why then the teachers of the law said that Elijah must come first?" Yeshua replied, "To be sure, Elijah comes and will restore all things. But I tell you, Elijah has already come, and they did not recognize him, but have done to him everything they wished. In the same way, the Son of Man is going to suffer at their hands." Then the disciples understood that he was talking to them about John the Baptist, Yohanan. From this passage of the Gospel that we have just read, a very interesting phenomenon emerges which causes many problems for a large number of Christians. By declaring and confirming an earlier prophecy that Eliyahu, Elijah, would return, Yeshua appears to be witnessing some form of reincarnation. This promise is nothing less than the last sentence quoted in the Old Testament, and which predicts the coming of the Messiah by the fact that the prophet of prophets, the greatest among all the messengers, will appear once again. That is to say that Eliyahu, Elijah, will be sent to earth once more. I read from Malachi chapter 4, verse 5 to 6. "See, I will send the prophet Elijah to you before the great day and dreadful day of Yahuwah comes. He will turn the hearts of the parents to their children, and the hearts of the children to their parents, or else I will come and strike the land with total destruction." Yohanan, who baptized, is the voice that cries out in the wilderness, the one who brings the hearts of the children back to their father. How is it possible that a so-called man could come back in such a way? Does Yeshua believe in what we consider to be seriously occult, which is reincarnation? This indeed seems to be the case. But as I just mentioned, Elijah was no ordinary man. We must understand that even when it comes to reincarnation, the enemy has not invented anything new. As usual, he only takes the original and distorts it by diminishing it, or on the contrary, exaggerating it, as in the present case, in order to make all of humanity believe that men are born and reborn in other bodies and at other times on earth, in form of humans, animals, or even plants. Christianity's reaction to all this is complete denial. which unfortunately distorts its prophetic vision regarding certain biblical truths. The enemy thus manages to sow doubt concerning the veracity of the word of Elohim by accusing it of being in contradiction with itself, or even by making the words of Yeshua appear as being a confirmation of his false theory of reincarnation, which is the Oriental and occult version, and which unfortunately is also endorsed by rabbinical Judaism itself. Theories of reincarnation extended to all humans attempt to deprive the deceived people of the message of the gospel and the need for redemption. Because to claim that you or I, or anyone else, could be reincarnated in any form is truly a huge lie. A human being is born into the physical world only once, period during which he has the possibility of repairing the fault committed by our common ancestors, Adam and Eve, by re-establishing his relationship with the Father through the acceptance of the shed blood of the Lamb of Elohim. There are no second or any further chances. There is no other earthly life after earthly life, where one could perform all kinds of good deeds and collect good grades in order to obtain grace through his works. However, we must finally denounce this lie, like all the others, in order to restore the original version of all the biblical truths which have thus been stolen. We must realize that there are indeed some characters who can be reincarnated according to the will of Yahuwah. These are spiritual principalities, which according to the will and the plan of Elohim are sent to earth in a human envelope, conceived and born of women, and in their case of men also, of earthly fathers, in order to fulfill tasks that are so huge and important that it would not be possible to entrust them to mere mortals. They are the Malachim, or the messengers, angels, Shaliachim, envoys, who receive a human form and body of flesh in order to accomplish a certain task and carry out a very specific mission. Just as in the case with the greatest mission in the world, when Yahuwah himself incarnated among us as the Son, except that in his case, he was born only of a biological mother. Thus, reincarnation is possible in their case, since they do not come among us to decide whether they will be saved or not, whether or not they will repair their relationship with the Father through the blood of the Lamb, since they were created before man and they, indeed, kept their original places and functions during the rebellion and remained at the side of Elohim even before the creation of the world. Of course, and unfortunately, the opposing side has also the right to send such delegates from time to time. So demons and Satan himself come into the world, appearing in the flesh to carry out their evil missions, besides also being able to possess simple humans as well to manipulate them. Thus we can see in the case of Elijah, a man who appears twice in the Bible, with the same physical characteristics, the same style of clothing, the same lifestyle, and the same eating habits. Eliyahu appears as a wild man, dressed in animal fur with leather belts, living in caves, feeding on grasshoppers and other insects, of course all being kosher by the way. A man who, like Yeshua, apparently has nothing on this earth, that is to say, he does not have much to do with it, because his true place is somewhere else. And coming back to Malachi, it is interesting to note that before these last two sentences, even before announcing the return of Elijah, in verse 4, Elohim draws our attention to another character, as well as to the message conveyed by the latter. In Malachi 4:4 I read, Remember the law of my servant Moses, the decrees and laws I gave him at Horeb for all Israel. Once again, the two great biblical characters, Elijah and Moses, are mentioned in parallel or in the same place. The two always appear together. The two angels blocking the way to the gates of the Garden of Eden, the two cherubs covering the Ark of the Covenant, the two principalities surrounding Yeshua on the Mount of Olives, and presumably the two witnesses who will be revealed within a few months, and which will be none other than the last mission than these two spiritual principalities born in the flesh for the second or the third time, in order to accomplish their last mission on earth. Having become aware of the special nature and angelic essence of the two characters, it might be time to see if, on the basis of the Word, is there any indication of the true identity of these two angels who incarnate and reincarnate as men. Who are they in the spiritual dimension? What are their eternal names? Does Elohim reveal to us in His Word the names of these two cherubs so often quoted in the Bible? Moses, Michael, Elijah, Gabriel. Before even answering this question, I would like to draw attention to the fact that researching this topic is not inappropriate, unreasonable, or unnecessary. From the moment something is found in the word of Elohim, understanding it, recognizing the connections and links between the different passages of the Bible, helps us to strengthen our faith that the revealed word appears to us day and day more coherent and revealing of ever deeper messages and spiritual truths. This type of reflection and study helps us to better understand the essence and role of the Messiah himself by always recognizing in a little more depth the spiritual components of the kingdom of Elohim and the hierarchy which binds spiritual beings who inhabit it. Anyone who would call this occultism must know that the word occult means something hidden, kept in the shadow, and that by bringing to the light of day what is hidden in the Bible, that is to say occulted, we only further confirm the glory of light itself. This is important so that we can have deeper knowledge to increase our confidence in the revelation in the Word. Because in fact at the present time, where more and more attacks are being perpetrated against the veracity of the Bible, in order to make it appear incomplete by also bringing to light manuscripts supposedly hidden until today, in order to make even Christians believe that the Holy Scriptures are incomplete and that other truths are revealed to us through all kinds of apocryphal books, for example. This is a very big problem that shakes many believers to the depths of their faith. So for this reason, let's see how I received the following message through a prophetic vision which has been reinforced by the Scriptures. I read from Prophet Zechariah, chapter 3, verse 1 and 2. Then he showed me Yeshua, the high priest, standing before the angel of Yahuwah, and Satan standing at his right side to accuse him. Yahuwah said to Satan, Yahuwah rebuke you, Satan. Yahuwah, who has chosen Jerusalem, rebuke you. We read in Zechariah 3, the trial of Yeshua the high priest. Satan accuses him, and Yahuwah says to him, Yahuwah rebuke you. The angel of Yahuwah appears on several occasions, and it is generally agreed that the Messiah reveals himself this way before the time of redemption. For example, when he appears to Samson's parents and cannot reveal his name to them because it is wonderful. So we see in Zechariah that the Messiah is defending the high priest Yeshua who is clothed with a filthy garment and standing before Yahuwah. Yeshua, or Yahushua, as it is written in the original Hebrew, appears here following the sacrifice on the cross when he took the sins of the world upon himself. He defiled himself for others as the high priest, according to the order of Aaron, did earlier during the sacrifice of the red cow. In essence, we see that the Messiah defends Yahushua against Satan's accusations. And we read well, Yahuwah said to Satan, "May Yahuwah repress you." Here also, it is necessary to clearly understand the essence of the threefold holiness of Elohim, since we see a single Elohim expressing himself from various angles as being present in different places at the same time, referring to himself as if he was several other persons distinct from him. He expresses himself in different qualities and attributes in order to defend himself as the Son. The angel of Yahuwah, the Messiah, as spirit, takes up the defense of Yahushua as the high priest, who has just died and thus appears before the heavenly court after the act of redemption, having taken all the defilement of the world on him. If we manage to understand this, then let us continue our reasoning and look at the Epistle of Jude, where we find exactly the same story, with different characters. In the place of the Messiah, we can find the Archangel Michael, who no longer defends the high priest Yahushua, but Moses, against the accusations of the same Satan. I read from Jude, verse 9. But even the Archangel Michael, when he was disputing with the devil about the body of Moses, did not himself dare to condemn him for slander, but said, Yahuwah rebuke you. Here it is no longer Yahuwah who says, May Yahuwah rebuke you, Satan. But like what we read in Zechariah, Michael follows the example of his Lord, Yahuwah as the Messiah, and prefers to pass the right of judgment back to the hands of the Almighty. Although we know that the final blow of grace, which will definitively kill the dragon, will be carried out precisely by this same Archangel Michael. Well, does it seem pretty obvious now? If Yeshua, Yahushua, is the human manifestation of the Messiah, then Moses is the human manifestation of Michael. The spiritual essence of the character is defending its own human manifestation against the slanders of the enemy after having been taken back to appear before the face of Yahuwah. On the Mount of Olives, 3 of the apostles recognized 2 emblematic figures several centuries after their removal. They were Moses and Elijah, at a time when neither painting nor photography was in use and even less authorized. How could Peter, James, and John know that they were seeing Moses and Elijah without ever having seen them before? The disciples themselves, as men, could only recognize the archangels through the human incarnation in which they appeared on earth several centuries earlier. Let's not forget, either, that the Jews precisely identify with the Archangel Michael this cloud which walked before them in the desert during the day and the pillar of fire which did the same at night. The people of Elohim, through the New Testament, the Christians, in agreement with us, the Messianic Jews, we know that this cloud was none other than the angel of Yahuwah, which is Yahushua HaMashiach, who walked before Moses and the people. I see 2 reasons why the Jews see Michael rather than the Messiah in this phenomenon. The first simply is that fundamentally most Jews are still in exile under the veil that blinds and prevents them from recognizing the true Messiah. And the other reason is that Michael was actually there too, directly behind the pillar of fire, between it and the Jews, as a mediator between the Messiah and the people, but then locked up and in exile, or rather on a mission on earth in a human body. Because when the people fixed their eyes on the pillar, they also saw Moses, who was always passing before them. When we read in Exodus chapter 23, verse 21, "See, I am sending an angel ahead of you to guard you along the way and to bring you to the place I have prepared. Pay attention to him and listen to what he says. Do not rebel against him. He will not forgive your rebellion, since my name is in him." We therefore have confirmation of this in Parashat Mishpatim of the previous week. The angel who was sent before the people is none other than Yahushua, since he is the only one having the power to forgive or not, and in him alone we can find the name of the eternal, Yahuwah. Although Michael was also present through the person of Moses, and this is the reason why the Jewish community identifies this angel with the Archangel, since Michael has in fact always been one of the main guardians of the chosen people, just after the Messiah himself. When the morning star fell, a third of the stars in the sky fell with him. Satan, as an archangel, was undoubtedly followed by the army of angels who were originally under his command. See in Isaiah chapter 14 and Ezekiel chapter 28. But contrary to any Jewish, Christian, or other fanciful ideas coming from all kinds of gnostical, extra-biblical books, according to which there would be 4, 7, 10, or even more archangels, even if it is mentioned in the so-called Book of Enoch, which was never integrated into the sacred books or canonized, they are in reality only 3 archangels, or rather 2, because one of them has fallen. The Bible mentions only 2 authorities, which are neither more nor less than Michael and Gabriel. All the other names of supposed archangels, such as Raphael, Uriel, or other fanciful names which moreover are downright blasphemous, as I will explain it in another of my articles concerning the apocryphal books, are only pure human inventions, certainly greatly inspired by deceptive and evil spirits. These blasphemous names, given that they take on attributes which are the exclusive property of the Almighty, such as healing, for example, since Raphael means Elohim heals, because healing is none less than a form of redemption and creation, or creation again. Even worse is the name of Uriel, which means the light of Elohim. The light of Elohim cannot be transferred from Yahuwah to one of his creatures, because that would mean that light can be departed from Elohim, which is impossible. Could you imagine any being declaring from himself to be the light of Elohim, except from Yahushua HaMashiach? There is no doubt that there is only one being capable of such a blasphemy, and his name is not Uriel, but Satan. So any statement of this kind cannot be coming from Ruach HaKodesh, but from the anti-Ruach, from the spirit of the Antichrist. If there were other spiritual principalities of higher rank, like Michael and Gabriel, the Bible would certainly have mentioned them, for the simple reason that the mere existence of such powers in itself justifies their name of being mentioned at least once in the 66 canonized books. Rank obliges. They are the direct collaborators of Elohim. If there were others, it is impossible that he would hide them. These are creatures who carry out missions of such magnitude that not mentioning them in the Holy Scriptures would be inconceivable, and such an omission is completely unimaginable. The story of Yahushua's transfiguration on Mount Olives, where he meets Moses and Elijah, testifies to this number of archangels fixed at 3. One of the 3 archangels fell and took many other angels with him in his peril. The other 2, Michael and Gabriel, remained. Elohim, in his capacity as Messiah himself, came to take the place left vacant by Hallel, which is the mirror of the light of Elohim and not the light of Elohim itself, as mentioned before, who thus became Satan, which means the accuser or the adversary. As Yahushua says, I am the light of the world. After the fall and expulsion of Satan and his demons, Elohim did not create new principalities in their place. Hallel's place is taken by Yahuwah himself as the Son. The replacement of the other fallen angels, the demons, on the other hand, is resolved in a different way. The light of the world comes to replace the one who had to reflect this same light, the glory of Elohim. Well, with full knowledge of these facts, we can even go so far as to understand and glimpse the precise identity of the 2 witnesses who will appear at the end of time and who will reveal themselves in just a few months. We can already know that these will naturally be the same Moses and Elijah, Michael and Gabriel, who are already living among us as men somewhere in the world. But also, and above all, we can understand and finally give the answer to the oldest and most visceral question that humankind has ever asked to itself. Why did Elohim create man? And you will find the answer to that in my articles and videos called Be Reshit, Be Beginning, Be Plan, as well as in True Replacement Theology, What Was Man Made For?